Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all. Welcome to John Knox Village Resident Council. I am Janet Crowell, President of Resident Council, and we welcome you. If you would silence your cell phones, that would be courteous to everyone. Our Vice President, Joe Chase, now we'll see if we have any newcomers to this meeting.
Look, I got a bell. It's right on the door. Oh, it's right there. Where it is. Looking for my purse.
Okay. Whoops. Oh boy, that is really loud today. Who's new? Stick your hand up. Anybody not been here? Oh, there we go. And your name is? How long have you been here, Bob?
3 years. And I never came to these meetings because I didn't want to raise my hand.
Okay. All right. Well, and where do you live?
Hope Lane.
Hope Lane. Okay. There were some other hands over here. Where are we? There we go. And your name is?
I'm Gail Strader.
Gail Streger. And where do you live now?
We're at Meadows South, and I've been here 4 months.
Okay. Where did you come from?
Lakewood.
Lakewood, not very far. Okay, thank you. Boy, that's loud. You're new? New to the meeting. Your name is?
Georgia Heinkel, and this is my husband Tom, and we're going to move into Building E.
Oh, good. And we're
Lakewood.
You're from Lakewood. More Lakewood people. Anybody else that's new to this meeting? No. Okay, but you're first time to resident council? All right, you're good. I know you've lived here. There's another newbie. Alrighty, and your name is?
Shirley Hendricks.
Shirley Hendricks. And where do you live, Shirley?
I live in Villager.
Live in the Villager. Good to see Villager people here. How long?
2 years.
2 years. And where did you come from?
Illinois.
Illinois. Boy, somebody. Where?
A little village called Hartford.
Okay. So any other new people? Hands, stick them up. Okay.
Well, let's give everyone a big welcome for them. And we do hope you come back. Now we will have words from Maria Timberlake, Vice President of Senior Living.
Hi, everybody. So, are there so many people here because it's such a beautiful day? The weather's nice? Or you're so excited? Everybody's favorite, right? I'm just giving Kim a hard time. Or are you here to hear the foundation news? Yeah.
Oh, they came to.
Oh, Lita says it's because of the food. Okay. All right. Glad you're consistent. Okay. So, and then we've got the Chiefs game on Sunday. That's exciting. So, all sorts of exciting things today. But I do want to take a moment to be serious. And if y'all remember when you've heard me talk about the resident satisfaction survey, that consistently, I mean, literally across 30 years, security and EMS have been the highest scoring services with regard to your satisfaction. And when we ask you what you find very important about living at the village, you talk about safety and security, right? So is this ringing true with a lot of you guys? Yes. Okay. So over the last few years and continuing into next year, we've been investing a lot of money in upgrading our pull cord system, the emergency response system, the cords that you all have in your home. And I just want to remind you that we want you to use that system. It's there for a reason. We have EMTs serving as security officers for a reason. And that is because we do take your safety and your security very seriously. And you might say, well, we know that, Maria. Why are you sharing that with us today? Well, we had a situation over the weekend, excuse me, that I was alerted to on Saturday morning that a resident who lives in an apartment had called her family and said that she was having trouble breathing and could they come and take her to the hospital. And as the son-in-law was pulling onto campus, he made a phone call to security and asked if they could meet him there at his mother-in-law's apartment. By the time they got to the mother-in-law's apartment, she had passed away. Now, I'm not a medical professional. I can't say that calling security would have had a different outcome. But the point was, if you're ill, and certainly if you ever feel in distress, please, please use the call system. We can notify your family about what's going on with you, or to tell them that they want you to come, or that you want them to come, or that you want them to meet you at the hospital, or whatever the situation calls for. But I'm always a little bit I'm concerned when I hear those situations, because I want to make sure that people take advantage of all that we have tried to embed in the village for your health and safety and well-being. And so, please keep that in mind, that they're there for a reason. And if you or a family member who lives here, or a neighbor who lives here, is starting to show signs that maybe independent living is getting hard to manage, we do have the alert buttons. And I know a lot of times those end up in the junk drawer, right, in your kitchen. That's where my parents put theirs. Um, but again, they're there for a reason, and we want to be able to respond if you need us. It's also a good opportunity to remind you that when you get your fee increase letter, right, Kim? That's going to be coming out soon. We'll be including a copy of information that you have on file for us. And we ask you to take a look at that and alert us if there are any changes in that information. Your veterinarian has changed, your primary care doctor has changed, whatever. The really important ones to look at are your emergency contacts, because sometimes we do try to reach family only to find out that family has a different phone number. So please, please, please look at those forms when you get them. Make sure those phone numbers are right, so if there is an emergency, that we can reach your family members. So on a beautiful day with the Chiefs and the foundation and everything so exciting, I hate to kind of be a bit of a downer, but I think it's really important to remind you that we're here to serve you, and that can be putting on a party. But more importantly, that's when you really need us, when there's an emergency situation. And we have to partner in that by having good information and you using the tools that we have made available to you. So please just make note of that. And that's what I've got today. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Now we will hear from our committee chairs and finance.
Well, Maria made it sound pretty gloomy, but I have something to add to that. That should bring us somewhat of a smile. We have a new resident in G&H building that used their cord, called the EMTs, went to the hospital, had some surgery done. And when we went to visit him, he had nothing but praise for our medical staff. So I think it's a combination of maybe people that have been here for so long, they forget that they have those cords. And maybe we all need to just remind each other that we've got them. Sorry, I just wanted that's a bad deal. Finance Committee met January 29th in the Missouri room, and Kim Cocken gave the December report ending December 31st. That report reflected an operating margin of 11.8%, which was a result of strong occupancy numbers and lower staff cost and other operation cost. The total year-to-date revenue is up 5.8% over last year. While expenses are up only 1.8% because of the total labor cost is less than last year. The year-to-date operation margin of 10.5% is favorable to budget and better than last year. Salaries and wages are favorable to budget, but reflect a $17,000 increase over last year. EMS financial performance for December was 27.5%, improving to date, margin to 25.1%, and is better than last year. Home health is still struggling. They are making changes that give optimism for improved results. The hospice December financial results show revenue over budget and expenses under budget. So Michael is making great strides to improve hospice, and he is also working on home health. And he's got Anthony over here to advise him also, and many other people in the health department that we have around here. The business unit supporting the continuum care of senior living, assisted living care center reflects a combined operation contribution of 7 to 8% greater than last year. Daily cash on hand increased 42 days in December, arriving at 235 days compared to 193 days that were budgeted. The Financial Committee has reviewed the budget for 26 and is pleased with it. And Kim is here today to discuss what we heard in our meeting. Our next meeting is in the Missouri Room at Lakeside, February 26th, 2025 at 1 p.m. And we are happy you're all here because the budget information is important to all of us, as the reports from all of our committees. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frank Colburn, Chairman of the Health and Health Services Committee. We met on January 14th. Our program was Anthony Colombato, Vice President of Health and Community Services. And first, Anthony recognized our associates in the healthcare community for their performance during the bad weather in January. Many of them spent the night staying up to 72 hours to care for residents in the care center, assisted living, and memory care. The care center was recently evaluated by the Missouri Center for Medicare Services. Their visits are unannounced, and this one happened to be immediately after the big snowstorm. We received high marks with only 4 minor deficiencies noted, and the average for these deficiencies statewide is more like 15. Our partnership with Curana continues to expand. Curana is based out of Texas, and they are the largest of their kind, providing geriatric services. They recently installed a new remote patient monitoring system in long-term care rooms. The system monitors breathing and activity to provide early detection and intervention. Curana is now also providing a neurology nurse practitioner 3 days a week in their clinic in the Villager area. In addition, starting February 1, they'll start providing mental health counseling. The expansion of the Parkinson's treatment centers in the south side of the care center is progressing very well, and now is projected to open on March 1st. Outpatient therapy will also be moving to the Care Center building tentatively February 22nd. Assisted living continues to have strong occupancy. A new activity offering is coming. It's called a Tofferfuffel, which is Dutch for magic table. A table is provided onto which images are projected and games to be played by people around the table, such as a whack-a-mole. This is intended to stimulate brain activity for residents with dementia. Sounds like a lot of fun. Hospice is well underway with reorganization and expansion under our new director, Michael Stoker. The rebranding of our health services is underway. Surveys have found that 98% recognition of John Knox Village as an entity in the Kansas City metro area. The rebranding of our community services, such as outpatient therapy, health, and hospice, will include the phrase by John Knox Village to emphasize this connection. Our next meeting is February 12th in the Administrative Boardroom.
I am Martha Wood. The Resident Services Committee met on January 13th. Kelly Snell, Director of Life Enrichment, and Melissa McKay, Lifestyles Manager, came to the meeting to get ideas and opinions from the committee members about the Performing Arts program. First, they outlined the current situation. The Handbell Group is doing well. The resident-run theater group is flourishing, as are golfing, bowling, and fitness groups. However, participation in the music programs has dwindled, as only 40 residents out of 1,100 are currently involved. As Rick Ryder resigned as music director, it is a good time to reassess the community's interests and John Knox Village's resource allocation. Interest and participation in various groups often ebb and flow. In the past, the program has included different types of music, both vocal and instrumental, large groups, ensembles, men's groups, and women's groups. Kelly and Melissa asked the committee members' thoughts as to why residents are not joining and what the village might do that would attract more people and meet their musical interests. Committee members commented on several topics. Both music and theater now must share space, which doesn't work very well due to the limited size of the space and conflicts of rehearsal times. There are a few small groups of residents who enjoy getting together to play or sing and who may agree to entertain at neighborhood gatherings. There was general agreement that large groups such as the Choraleers require a director with experience, music education, a trained ear, and the ability to arrange music. Although the meeting brought no clear path ahead, generational differences as younger residents arrive may be a factor. Kelly and Melissa plan to speak with those residents who are currently music participants to get their ideas. Maria Timberlake's JKV update included appreciation for everyone's patience during the recent ice and snow. Sadly, there were a few cases of residents being verbally abusive to us associates who were working extra shifts, some of whom stayed on the campus overnight. Also, a boiler went out in the villager complex, and a new one had to be shipped from Detroit. During this period, the residents affected were notified and updated via the new mass communication system. The system worked well. Good news. Financing in the budget for a new work order system has been approved. Please let me know if you would like to visit Resident Services. Our next meeting is on February 10th in the administrative boardroom. And I think most committees may be looking for some new members as term limits cause some to leave.
My name's Greg Coulter. I'm chair of the Sales, Marketing, and Communications Committee. We met last on January 16th, and Anthony Colombato joined us to talk about the rebranding of the health services departments. I'm not going to dwell on that too much because Frank has already mentioned it. And if you've been checking your emails, The Voice today also had a nice article explaining the rebranding. The reason that's important to our committee is because we are the Marketing and Communications Committee, not only for sales, but also for health services. And that's been a good collaboration over the last year and a half as we've rebuilt those brandings, and it's led to some very positive outcomes. So we were happy to hear that report. Another report we got at this last meeting was from Mary Beth Roberts, who gave us a summary of the history of the villa renovation projects. Beginning in fiscal year 2014 and through the project scheduled to finish this spring, which will begin this spring in phase 12, we have 123 older units that will have been replaced by 78 new units. This helps us partly because of renovations, style, marketability, foundation problems, roof problems. There's a variety of reasons why you get on the list. But Mary Beth did a good job showing us the neighborhoods and the coverage and where we've been and where we might be going. Just for your information, the average size of those units that were torn down was 858 square feet. I know you're writing all these numbers down, right? I'll wait. They have been replaced by newer villas with an average square footage of 1,308 square feet. So you can see they're larger, they're more marketable. That's what people hope for. Our marketing and sales departments are constantly evaluating trends, trying to figure out, okay, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom and den, 2-bath, what's going to sell. We try to stay ahead of the trends. We also try not to get out over the edges of our skis and overbuild at any given time. So if you're in a neighborhood that's had a lot of rebuilding, we apologize for the inconvenience, But as visitors come onto our campus and see all the new buildings, they are thrilled. The average occupancy of those new villas is 95%. They're often sold before we break ground. It's absolutely amazing. Mary Beth also brought us our third quarter marketing update. At our 3/4 point of the year, our leads are up by almost 300. So it's been a very positive year in terms of leads. Deposits and move-ins are each off by just 3 or 4, so less than about 2%. Units occupied, where we estimate to have units occupied at this point, we're actually up 5. So everything's moving smoothly, despite all of the renovations and Courtyard E displacements. Entry fee revenues always key. Where's Kim? Kim likes to hear us talk about entry fees when we're ahead of schedule. Well, year-to-date actual money in the bank, we're a little bit behind schedule. We've only brought in 60%, but when you include all the pending deposits, we're at 106% of our annual budget. And we're only 3/4 of the way through the year. So we hope to end the year again with a surplus in terms of the entry fees, which allows the rest of the campus to have the cash on hand to consider extra projects. These are the number we met the second week of January. So these are January 6th numbers. They've already changed. That's how fast things happen. Courtyard E, 52 units under construction, 38 are under deposit. Phase 10, and Courtyard E should be finished, we're projecting summer of 25. With the bigger projects, it's harder to have a precise move-in date, but we're working on it. They're staying relatively on schedule, so we're pleased with that. The phase 10 of the villas, which people are already starting to move into, should be, our goal was March 31st move-in dates. 7 are constructed. We had 7 under contract. 1 has had to back out. But we are moving on to the next level of folks. We've got 60 or so people that are waiting for a villa. We will have no trouble. And I understand 1 has already moved in. So the phase 10 is right on schedule, doing well. Phase 11 was that mid-course where we did 5 extra starting in the fall. We hope to have those ready for move-in by September 30th. 5 units are under renovation and 4 are under contract. Our next meeting is February 20th. We would welcome both visitors and those who are interested in becoming members of our committee. We meet in the Manhattan Room in the Villager. Thank you.
I want to give a big hand from all of you and myself for our committee chairs, the hard work they do, and all the members that volunteer their time to make John Knox what it is. I see Dan is here. You're up, Dan. Dan is president of John Knox Village, and he will give us an update.
Thanks, Janet. Thanks for all adjusting your schedules a little bit to come to the pavilion for today's exciting announcements. Let me give you a little, speaking of exciting announcements, probably most of you have heard that Kim Clockingay has let us know his plans for retirement. And so Kim's going to get up here and give a presentation in a few minutes. He just celebrated a birthday. Was it Saturday or Sunday, Kim? Saturday. He celebrated a birthday, so you'll have to wish him happy birthday. And I guess he thought that that birthday was significant enough that he was announced his retirement. So let me just say a couple of things about that. First of all, to just honor and recognize Kim for his outstanding leadership over the past 13 years. He has led the village finances with grace and kindness, but firmness. Sometimes people need to hear the word no, and Kim hasn't. None of the executive team is agreeing with that, but Kim has a excellent way of saying no when he needs to say no, and saying yes when we need to say yes, and all the development that's taken place over these past several years has added to the financial strength of John Knox Village, and Kim has made sure that each one of those projects adds to the finances of the village, not detracts. And so then we're able to do another project, and that project adds to the financial strength, and we're able to do another project. So that does not just happen automatically. And then under Kim's financial leadership, we've gone through some interesting things like COVID and all the labor shortages and supply shortages, and we've gone through an inflationary period, and we've gone through a number of other challenges that Kim has guided us with a steady hand. So just want to give my thanks to Kim, and we'll find additional ways over the next few months to recognize Kim, but thank him for his leadership. And then it couldn't be a better situation because we have Steve Segerman, who is our Director of Finance, and he's going to be able to step right in. He's been here for over 5 years and has done an outstanding job. He's the obvious and easy choice because he has done such a good job, and he has served as not only Chief Financial Officer, but also Chief Executive Officer of a smaller life plan community, Bishop Spencer Place, prior to coming to John Knox Village. So he has executive leadership, and I just couldn't think of a better individual than Steve Segerman to come in, and he's been with Kim for these last 5+ years, so he's been into all those details. So some folks may say, well, Dan's leaving, Kim's leaving, what's going on around here? Well, I think when you're about 70 years old, it's time to retire. So I've been asking everyone at the village when they retired, and I'm getting a lot of answers that are much younger than 70. So I think it's time. And really, in my thinking for the process, and I think Kim's too, is this is a good in-between time for us to retire because we're just finishing up with Courtyard E project and a number of villas, and we haven't really launched the next set of projects. So this is a good pause in our redevelopment efforts, and so new leadership can make decisions. We won't get them into anything that they don't want to be into. And the reality is, Village is in a strong financial position, and the addition to the E building, when people start moving in this fall, it's going to put the Village even a stronger financial position. So I think it's good timing for the Village. And the fact is, we can't work forever. So it's got to happen at some point, and I think now's the best time for it to happen. So that's my report. I want to make sure I give Kim as much time as possible. So thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Dan. And so, without further ado, we welcome Kim Clockengay, Vice President of Finance and Corporate Treasurer, to share with us about the budget.
Try not to break this. Then we'd have to buy another one. I don't like that idea. Well, thanks, Dan. I really do appreciate that. Very kind words. I'm sure there will be some joy, with Steve taking my place because I'm probably a little more ornery than Steve. But at the end of the day, Steve is a really, really capable individual. And so it's been really nice 13 years of doing a lot of great projects with some really great people that I work with. So that's not why I'm here to talk about it, but Dan kind of was interjected all of this, so I do appreciate his kind words. But we're going to talk about the budget, and I was thinking, wow, what a great crowd of people coming to visit, to see the budget. I mean, it is exciting stuff. Um, at least to me. Um, Unfortunately, most do not look at that. There is a pretty significant amount of work that goes into the budget, and I think just to know that we're very serious about it because it is the business plan for next year. And in large part, what we put this together, we try to hold each other very accountable for it. Every month we do talk about the results and any variances from those results. And basically we explain them. And yeah, Lita did a very nice job of talking about our report for December. But we go through all of that stuff with the board finance committee, and we also go through it with the resident finance committee. So we're very transparent about the financials and what's going right and what's going wrong. We don't pretend to ignore some of those things. We want to make sure that you're always aware of, how well the village is doing financially. Because at the end of the day, we don't want you to feel like, should I refer a friend here because of where the organization is financially? We want to be very transparent, and so you're very confident with that. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. Let's see. You can kind of see it. All right. So just talk a little bit about process. So we basically have a guideline that we try to meet every year, right? And I'll explain a little bit about where the forecast is relative to the budget for 25, because the 25 forecast is where we start to create our 2026 budget, a fiscal year 26 budget. And then I'll go through some of the projects, challenges, opportunities. Those are things that just are going to happen now and during the year, things of interest that you will see, and they certainly drive some of that financial performance. So our guideline is basically we want to increase revenue 0.5% more than the increase in expenses. And if we do that every year, what that continues to do is improve our operating margin. And so that's the goal. As we put together the budget, we start to look at what are the expenses going to be. Whatever that increase is going to be, we need to make sure that our revenue is going to exceed it by at least, 0.5%. So if you look at where we're at today, our forecast says that we're going to end up with operating income, about $6.3 million. And we're looking at a budget that says we're going to be at $7.1 million. And so if you look at the change in revenue year over year, that $4.4 million is a 5.9% increase. And if you look at the operating expenses, they're going to go up $3.6 million, which is 5.2%. And so the spread there is 0.7%. So that meets our operating budget guidelines. And if you have questions, during this, just raise your hand. I'll try to interject those things so that it becomes a little bit more of a dialogue than it becomes, just a presentation. But we want to make sure we kind of cover your concerns. So if you look at the forecast, this is, our budget. And when you look at the forecast, basically on an operating income, looks like we're forecasting to beat the budget by $881,000. Revenue is going to be under budget, by 2.2%, but our operating expenses are going to be under by 3.6%. And you can see most of the operating expense favorable variance is really driven by salaries and wages. On the revenue side, we've got health services is going to be under by 2.2, and most of that's coming from home health and hospice this year. Basically, we've talked about that, but when you look at senior living, assisted living, and the care center, the growth has really been about 7 to 8% over last year. And when you look at the expenses, some of this is really because we anticipated that our inflation was going to increase our expenses, the operating expenses, about 10 to 14%. Well, when you look at what's actually happened, really it's only increased by 3 to 9%. And also then staffing agency is down by 19%. So that's what's really helping us to be, doing so well compared to budget for this fiscal year. So now we take the forecast and we move it into the FY26 budget. And you look at that, we talked about how the increase is going to be $4.4 million in revenue, or 5.9%. A big chunk of that is coming out of health services revenue. And a lot of that is really coming from home health and hospice. Monthly service fees is our independent living at 3.9%. And then some of the other revenues are just going to go down. It's about $41,000. So looking at operating expenses, because our forecast, our salaries and wages are down so much, to get from a budget standpoint, we budgeted fully staffed. And so that's our $2.9 million increase in those expenses, or 7.6%. If you look at that and compare it to the 25 budget, it's really only 2.7%. So really, if you look at year over year, what does our staffing look like? There's only an increase of 4 FTEs, and there's an assumption in there of the wage increase. But what's happening is that we, and I've got a chart here to show you our FTE analysis, but it's really being driven to fill a lot of the vacant positions here that we have in 25 and 26. Benefits are up about 5.3%. Our professional fees are down 3.2%. Supplies, other operating costs, and utilities insurance, they're only up a little, not quite 3%. So overall, it's 5.2% increase. And so if you look at year over year, we're looking at operating income by increasing by $827,000.
You might make the point, last year the monthly fee increased to 5.4 and so in 3.8.
Right here. Thank you for leading into that. She was asking that for me to remind you what has happened with the monthly service fees over the last 3 years. And so here it is. Thank you, Lita, for leading into that very nicely. So this is basically looking at our budget years, 3-year trend. And so private rates, this is your monthly service fees. If you kind of recall, in 24, it was 5.9% increase. This year went at 5.4, and we're moving it down this year to 3.9%. Good. Yeah. You always want to leave on a good note, right? Other revenues. So from a salons and all the other type of activity that, you'll see those ancillaries are going to go up about 4%. And then the average entrance fee increase for those moving in is going to be another 4%. Associate average pay increase. Back in 24, we did a 3%. With everything that was going on and going into this year, We did a 4%. I kind of remember back in 24, we also did $1 million increase for wage compressions. So while we show a 3% increase in 24, it was significantly larger than that. Probably the average came somewhere closer to 6 or 7%. Because we were hiring people from a market standpoint, we're coming in at a higher rate than the people who had been here for a while. It was getting very close to the same wages. And so we needed to really recognize the service time and make sure that we were addressing some of those compression issues. So when you look at our employer portion, this right here of associate health insurance cost, it went up 10.3 last year, and it's only going up 5.6. A lot of this was put together in September, October, and our claims experience was much lower. We're favorable to budget. As of the end of December, we're actually unfavorable to budget. So that's kind of an area where right now, if I said there's any risk, it's not trending the way we expected it to early this year, but it's very difficult to predict. And then this just kind of gives you an idea of how many of our associates are covered by our associate health insurance program. This is a great story here. If you look at these ratios, this is one of my favorite slides, of course. Financials are fun to read, but there are a lot of numbers. These trends are what investors look at, our banks look at. These are the things that when we go, Fitch looks at, when we get a rating from the rating agencies. And so when you look at our days cash on hand, you can see really the trend has been upward over the last 5 years. One thing to realize on days cash on hand, even though like 24 is about the same as 26, well, the actual cash in 24 is about 48 million, where in 26 it's about 51 million. And so the reason the days cash on hand is the same is because our operating expenses are going up and offsetting the increase in the actual cash. And so for those who haven't been to our finance committee meetings or our quarterly finance meetings, days cash on hand really means is, what does it take to run the village expense-wise every day? And it's somewhere around $200,000 a day to run the village. And so if you kind of multiply that 236 days times 200,000, that kind of gets you to where our cash is at. And so it's still, what the good news is, while our expenses have increased, overall our cash has increased. And so our days cash on hand, it still says we could run the village for 236 days if we didn't get another penny today. So that's what our investors look at. And so debt service coverage has had a really nice increase from 1.41 to 2.53 times. And so what this means is our cash available to cover our debt. How much cash do we have? And so our debt runs about $9.2 million a year. And so when you look at cash available to cover that debt, we have a covenant with our investors at 1.2. And so we're going to be running about 2.5%. So what that says is that we've got a lot of cash available to cover our debt service. And that's really important as you start to look at investing into the future, because it says, what's your capacity to take on any more debt? If we were running at 1.3 times debt service coverage, we probably wouldn't be talking about another project, right? Because another project would be bringing on more debt unless it was really going to be bringing an incredible amount of margin. But, right now it says we have a lot of capacity to do that. So adjusted net operating margin. Let me talk about operating margin first. You can see how well this has improved over the last 5 years. It's always been my dream to get somewhere close to 8 or 9%, and we're looking at 8.9% this next year. Lita, shared in her reflection or talking about the December financials. Right now, we're running at a 10.5%. Don't expect the fourth quarter to be as strong as the first three, but we are running really close to 9% or above. So this is really a great story. And then when you take the operating margin and add entrance fees to it, that's how we get our adjusted operating margin. And you can see that trend has also been very, very positive over the last 5 years. So looking at our capital budget, we budgeted $3.6 million this year. We budgeted $4.5 million for next year, which is a really nice improvement. If you look at the areas where we've increased it, it has to do with renovations. It's about $200,000. A lot of that is really coming in Val, and really independent living is the same year over year. When you look at the pavilion in here, there's the HVAC systems really need to be replaced. So there's $260,000 in that for to replace those systems. Our kitchen equipment is getting fairly old, and so we need to replace some of that. There's $100,000 more in there. Technology and hardware. So we talked a little bit about the Works Hub. We've got a new POS system. So there's some other things that are going into additional technology for that. Vehicles, to increase vehicles to 145,000. What's kind of significant in here is if you look at the 25 budget, there's about $320,000 of ambulance cost in there. And so we don't have any ambulances coming in 26. So there's another $320,000 plus this 145 that's going to go into additional vehicles for operations, which should be a really great situation for them. And that's pretty much no really big changes otherwise. But at the end of the day, the total capital spend is going to increase by almost $1 million. So that's just investing more into the village and the operations, and that's really a good thing. So capital projects, you've probably seen most of this going on already. From the May financing, we've done an additional $224,000 for the Villager Inn. Sun Valley Clubhouse, you've seen that coming down, and the pool is getting done, and there will be a couple pickleball courts in there. So I don't know if anybody's out there practicing, getting ready for those tournaments, but it's gonna soon be here. And we've got a $3.2 million there. The dog park, it's right out here. You've probably all been by it. It's pretty much done. The opening is really depending on the hazardous situation in the E building. We don't want anybody getting hurt out there with their dogs, but that should be getting cleaned up and available soon. This is just showing you how much activity we have with the villas initiatives. So phase 10 is all done, and it's they're filling it up. Phase 5 is they're working on it now, and in the middle of October next year, it should be begin to fill. Doing the site work for 12, and they'll start building those in April, and then they'll be in next year. They'll be starting to look at 13 and identify some of the the sites that will put new villas there. So it's been a really good program for us, and we just continue to push that activity, because we just want to be able to build new and better product for for Sun Valley. Courtyard E building, you see it's right out there. Looks like is supposed to be completed in August, and we've already scheduled 12 move-ins in September. And when I say scheduled, that's not marketing scheduled, that's finances scheduled. As far as building our pro formas, we've got 12 in September, 12 in October, and 12 in November. So by the end of the year, we should be somewhere close to 44 move-ins. Budget challenges, the labor market. It's it's always kind of challenging when you look at retention. Our turnover rates are pretty high. I don't I don't think that next year is going to be any easier. There's a lot of moving parts right now in the economy, and so I don't know how well we're going to be able to recruit and keep people. It's not only just the economy, but if you look at the local economy here, especially like at dining services, a lot more restaurants being built, and there's a new senior living community built off of 150, and so there's always going to be more competition in this area because it is growing, and then the overall just the market in general is going to make it more challenging. We talked about associate health insurance cost. It's moving a little further north of budget than we expected when we put this together. But it doesn't mean that it can't change. January looks very good right now, and probably February. There's always this trend as you get to the end of the calendar year where people have met their deductibles and everybody is getting fixed whatever needs to be fixed. So we're just hoping that was just a cycle that we're going through. Workers' comp has been a little challenging for us over the last couple of years, managing the frequency and severity of claims. So we have a few more claims, and what's happening is some of those claims are much higher than they used to be. And so that's causing, some of the costs for workers' comp to go up for us. And we're trying to be very proactive, trying to manage some of that. Ravi is our risk manager, trying to be more involved every day on on the ground level, just to help people, to be cautious and just to use good practices in their work habits. And property and auto insurance cost. It's been tough. We are part of a captive. It's called Caring Community. So we buy insurance with like 27 other very large communities. So we have really some significant scale when we go to travelers and we say, you know what, we want to buy insurance, all 27 of us. And so they do look at, and we also have a very diverse, locations. So it's when you look at risk management, we're not looking at just, okay, how's things happening in Kansas City? There's a very wide risk diversification, which helps, somebody like Travelers to look at it and go, okay, we don't have all of our eggs in one basket here. We can lower some of those rates. And so we've done our very best to help mitigate a lot of the rate increases. But now what we're starting to see because of some of these big fires in LA, and, they're starting to understand that maybe the valuations aren't right. What does it cost to replace a building? And what their assumptions were at one point, this whole reality is becoming a little bit more greater because of these fires. Typically, like even in hurricanes, most of the time buildings don't get, there's repairs to buildings. There's not a total rebuild. And so they're starting to see that valuations are a big concern for them, and they're asking us to revalue the village. So while we're kind of optimistic with the rates that we have in the budget this year, potentially they could come back and ask us to increase some of the premium just to cover some of the valuation. So that's some of the little heartburn that I have right now, and we'll just kind of see how that plays out. Opportunities. We still believe, as much as I've been beating up on home health and hospice over the last, 6 months, really, there's a real big opportunity there. They've all moved into the care center. There's a consolidation, a synergy of their work. We're starting to see, more activity. So I think, there's a real opportunity there for them to beat budget in FY26. Outpatient therapy, a lot of the same scenarios. They're moving into the care center. The Parkinson program, has a real high upside. And so potentially they could really drive beyond their budget. We've talked about some of the strategic plan initiatives, technology, the new work ticket system, a new point of sale system, the e-building is part of our strategy, and then the Parkinson's program as well. So those are all really things that are kind of exciting and have the potential to really drive us into a better position than we've actually even budgeted for next year. So from a process standpoint, we've taken this preliminary budget to the board finance committee on January 14th. We proposed budget to the finance committee and the board on the 28th. Then we have taken this to the resident finance committee on the 29th. We're here today with you on the 3rd. And then we'll also be at leadership on the 5th of February. And then we'll be taking this to the board on February 6th for final approval. So it gets a pretty thorough review by the time we get to this point. So, we do appreciate a lot of the input that just continues to make it better. Anybody still awake out there? Okay. Oh, a question. Great.
AKB leadership.
I'll repeat it.
The new administration.
There's Caesar ponderables. What effects does that have on 26?
Well, we know the CEO never makes any real decisions here, so that's not a problem, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So with the change in leadership, and use imponderables, is that what you used? So basically just, how is that going to impact our finances and the plans that we have for next year, right? Is that paraphrase? Okay. And the year after. So yeah, 26 and into the future. So I made a joke that, Dan really doesn't make a lot of decisions anyway from the financing side. So we're all good there. No, I'm just kidding. But, he doesn't let me loose. He does keep me control. So, but Steve pretty much is, very similar style. He's been around, here for 5 years, kind of understands what we do. Maria and Anthony are still rock solid, important, decision makers on the business overall. So, I can't imagine that we would hire anybody on the CEO side that wouldn't support a lot of the directions that we've already established. This strategic plan, remember, has been in place since 2014. And so we continue to build off of that plan. It's a lot of incremental growth, so which it also mitigates some of the risk. And I don't see that, that concept is not going to change dramatically for the village. So I don't know if that answers your question or makes you feel any better. But I mean, that's that's probably the best that we got. I mean, the board, you've got to remember that the board is going to stay in place, right? And the board does oversight of all of what management does. And so there's not going to be a significant deviation from the strategic plan or what we've been doing historically with the board in place. There's no new board members this year. We've, Dan has recommended that, they stay in place for another year. So there's a lot of consistency there. So that there's no real radical changes in where the direction of the village over at least the next 12 months, and I would imagine, into the future.
I was thinking about the Trump administration. Ain't they're doing art and their CEO, they want to say, I don't have building H&I or JSA or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, his question was with regard to, well, I guess presidential change nationally and presidential change at John Knox Village. I won't make any predictions about what's happening on the national level. Obviously, I've lived through 35 years of presidential changes at John Knox Village, so I think that, we just carry on regardless of what and adjust whatever the national policies might be. But with regard to John Knox Village, we've got a pretty good, as Kim talked about the strategic plan, we've got more than a compass. I would say we've got a fairly defined roadmap for the future of the village over the next several years. And I know that the board is committed when they look at candidates and interview candidates, that one of the criteria is going to be, we don't need, what's the old saying? We don't need a bull in the china closet or a radical change agent to lead John Knox Village. We need someone who will obviously be a strong leader, but also will be looking at our plan, following our plan, and really, as Kim talked about, the incremental redevelopment. That's been the secret to the village success. We never bet the farm. We're always doing projects that are 50 units or maybe 100 units. We do the villa projects. And so none of those projects really put the village at great financial risk because it's incremental improvements, incremental building. And we plan on doing that for the next 20 years. So I think that you can be assured that new leadership will stay the course. We're not going to see radical changes.
They just need to hire somebody just like him. No.
Only better. What I've been trying to tell the staff is there is going to be some change, but I think there will be a better change. Somebody who's maybe a few decades younger, that might be good. Over here.
I think keeping with the theme there about both of you in terms of leadership and personality. We haven't been engaged with C the way we have with you. But in the 8 years that I've been here, I've always been impressed with the way that you conduct the financial stability of John Knox Village. And that you have the capacity to say no and do it in such a way that nobody is hurt or offended by it. And in keeping with that theme, it seems to me that you have always thought about the future, not just the present. That is this decision or this financial project going to jeopardize the future of the residents that live in John Knox Village? And I'm hoping that Steve will carry that torch, because I think I've always been confident that we're not going to crumble, regardless of what happens nationally or locally, because of the conscientiousness of you and the way that you have handled the financial stability of John Knox Village. So I'm hoping when Steve has spent 5 years with you, that his personality includes that protection that I have felt for you, and hope that continues.
Well, you're awfully kind. And I don't know that I do it quite as well as everybody has said. I think, at times I say no and it might not be, it could be a little offensive. But I think, the thing is that Steve and I talk. I mean, when I make decisions, I don't go, I include Steve in a lot of my conversations because, really been planning for Steve to be able to take this role, hopefully, at some time over the last few years, because he comes in with a lot of great experience. And so I feel like, he knows that. He understands that respect is probably greater, more important than being liked. He knows that where's Steve? Somebody's got to be getting the work done. So he will be in front of you more often, right? Over the next few days, so you'll get a chance, or months, so you'll get to see him. But he knows that he has to be able to say, and he's really is very good at saying that, what, we have to look at what, if we make this decision, what does it look like 5 or 10 years from now? Sometimes, especially on this, our industry loves service creep, because it really is, it's a good thing to make you all happy. But at the end of the day, it can also change some of the financial performance that we might not be able to do some of the things we want to do. And so he and his team do a lot of pro forma work for me to help to decide some of those things. And so he has always been a part of a lot of those decisions. And yeah, we don't make those decisions about Steve and his team being involved in it. So he's very, very, I would say more than capable to be able to do that.
Since Kim gave me a zinger, I'll say that, really Kim's just the pretty face
Exactly.
up here. Steve's doing a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yes,
How's that? Did I get you back good enough?
that's good.
Okay.
Truth hurts.
All right. Well, I know we're going to transition here, and I see that we've got a lot of paramedics that have come in the back door. So,
Defibrillators.
all right, we'll turn it back over to Janet.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next meeting will be back in Courtyard, March 3rd, 2 p.m., and it will feature Dan Rexroth and the strategic plan. So please come join us and tell your neighbors as well.